Welcome to the City of Bethlehem's Opening Doors community meeting. Thank you for coming out to talk about housing on a very, very, very beautiful summer night. We appreciate you sharing your time with us, but hopefully it'll be worth your while. We have a lot of our partners, both within City Hall and different bureaus and departments, and our external partners who we work with every day, here to share about some of our housing work that we haven't talked about yet in these updates. As most of you are aware, the city in 2022 completed its Opening Doors housing strategy. We started that process and then released it in late 2023, beginning of 2024. And the plan really lays out a bunch of strategic focuses for the city staff to put their time and energy and to invest the $5 million that City Council allocated for affordable housing work. So tonight we are going to be, I think really the theme is going to be partnership. None of this work is possible. Oh, it didn't work when I tried to. Selena, we might need you. I tested this beforehand, but. Tonight, the theme's really going to be partnership and how housing work is so complex, multifaceted, with so many dimensions that we really need to be attacking it on many angles and in innovative and collaborative ways. So whether that's like with our team down in community development and economic development, working with the Health Bureau or Public Works or the police, or that's Bethlehem Emergency Sheltering in New Bethany and Community Action Development, Bethlehem. The Opening Doors planning process allowed us to kind of break down silos, I think both within City Hall about how we approach some of our work and with our community partners. And it gave us some freedom to think about these solutions in new ways and build coalitions that have ended up bringing in millions of new grant funding dollars into the community to invest into housing work in Bethlehem. So we'll be talking about that tonight. With an affordable housing crisis as deep and as acute as the one that the Lehigh Valley and America as a whole is facing, it really requires innovative thinking and collaboration. And I think we have found ways to leverage the skills that each individual organization is bringing to the table. And instead of reinventing the wheel, we're kind of stacking all of those skills and resources together to help as many people as possible and to make the limited funding we have available go as far as possible. So we'll be highlighting tonight both kind of new programs that came out of Opening Doors, like our Choice Neighborhoods work, and then core programs like the city's housing rehab program for owner-occupied properties that have long been important to the health of the city's community and our housing stock. So if you want to go to the next slide. Just kind of as a reminder and overview, these are kind of the 5 core tenant strategies of Opening Doors. So it's updating our zoning and land use, offering incentives to create and preserve affordable housing. So those are kind of the 2 things we'll be focusing on our next meeting. We've been doing a lot of exciting work around accessory dwelling units and possible incentives for housing and a revolving loan fund. But tonight, as I said, we'll be really focused on building partnerships and how to protect both tenants at risk of displacement and residents at risk of displacement. There is a great quote by Karen Black that I cite very often in these meetings, that the most affordable housing is the house that someone is in now. So how can we keep people stay housed? We don't want like a broken furnace or a leaky roof to be the thing that pushes someone from being a homeowner into homelessness. So we'll be kind of talking about the different ways we're attacking preserving the housing stock that we have, keeping people housed, and how to keep affordable housing in our community that already exists while we're also looking at ways to bring new units online. And then kind of the last one, you don't have to change the slide though. The last one was just about advocating for both like state housing legislation, which we've been doing a lot of that. We're excited that the Governor Shapiro released his first housing action plan for the state of Pennsylvania. And we just found out that the new deputy secretary for housing will be coming to Bethlehem later this month, and we'll have an opportunity to kind of sit down and talk through our housing work. So we're excited for that opportunity. We've been working very closely with the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission during their new housing process for their housing attainability strategy. And as some of you may have seen, Congress also actually just passed the first large-scale housing reform bill in America in several decades. So we were super, super excited to see that and hoping that it will become law in the next 10 days. Okay, it worked. Oh, all right. Well, we'll just jump ahead to Gateway on fourth.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to sit down because I just feel more comfortable speaking from a chair. I'm Laura Collins. I'm our Community and Economic Development Director. And so the first part of our agenda, as Sarah mentioned, is the fostering partnerships component. We'll talk about this Gateway on 4th project, Choice Neighborhoods in the Pembroke neighborhood, our Pilot Alley House project, and Western Gateway. And these are all projects that, as the title suggests, are done in partnership with some large institutions and also just some community-based nonprofits around the city. And they're all projects that will result in the actual creation of new units. So the Gateway on 4th project will, in total, over 2 phases, be 120 units. The Pembroke Choice Neighborhoods project is 425 units in the current plan. The Pilot Alley House project, I think, is a handful of units, and the Western Gateway will be 60 units as well. And we'll talk about each of those, but the theme, as Sarah mentioned, is really that, because housing is so expensive and complicated to build now more than ever, partnerships are really important to bring multiple entities to the table that have different resources. You can leverage those resources, sort of like stacking the support necessary to make projects and particularly new units happen in the tough environment that we're in. So the project we've talked about quite a bit already, Gateway on 4th, is one that we're super excited about, and it is fairly far along at this point, which may seem like we've talked about it for a long time. How are you saying it's far along? There's no shovel in the ground yet, but given how again, complicated and expensive these projects are, how many partners are required, what the funding sources look like, we are really, really excited that, after a lot of work in putting together the different, parties who are making this project possible, we were awarded low-income housing tax credit for a total of about $16 million that'll go towards the project. That's the first in the City of Bethlehem since 2013. And it is only one of the 2 projects in the entire Lehigh Valley that was selected for a LIHTC award. It's quite competitive, but we're really proud of the application that we put together. And thank you. So we are, hoping to have shovels in the ground by the end of this year or very early beginning of 2027. And that'll be on the first 60 units, 2/3 of which will be affordable and 1/3 of which will be market rate. And also, note that this project is one that came out of a lot of community-based work that Community Action and City of Bethlehem did over a decade ago, looking at this particular neighborhood and this particular lot and envisioning what could happen here. And so that theme of partnership and a community-based approach to neighborhood redevelopment is really prevalent throughout. And I just want to say a little bit about the partners, as that's the theme, the partners that have been involved in this project that we've talked about before, but are worth mentioning again. Lehigh Valley Industrial Park, which, as many of you know, has redeveloped a ton of the former Bethlehem steel land for industrial, light manufacturing. They were pretty involved in paying attention to the work that we were doing and creating opening doors and wanting to expand their role in the community in development, and came on board, actually purchased this property and are essentially donating about $4 million worth of land and land costs to the project to make this possible, which is a huge deal, as the cost of land is one of the main barriers to building affordable housing. We're working with Penrose, who's the affordable housing developer, who's experienced in doing these sort of complex projects. We brought in neighborhood health centers at Lehigh Valley to be a tenant in the first floor of one of the multi-unit buildings that are part of this project. So they'll be providing much needed community health services to not only the residents of this project, but also for the entire neighborhood. Community Action Development in Bethlehem, as I mentioned, who's assisting in resident engagement and was a partner in the initial plan. The city's role is contributing some public funding sources, including through our annual allocation of HUD home dollars and some other funding sources. And then the Commonwealth as well has been very supportive of this project, has looked over everything that we've done and the partners that we've put together and the result for the community, and has contributed funds from the Department of Community and Economic Development, Commonwealth Financing Agency, and the Office of the Budget, and PHFA to the project. And that was with support from our State Senator Lisa Vascola and State Representative Steve Samuels. And so it's an exhaustive list of folks who have really been critical to making a project like that happen. And as I mentioned, these projects are extremely expensive, and because this has come up in some recent conversations, we thought it was worth talking about again. Right now, it costs at least $350,000 per unit to build new housing. That's higher than it was previously, and the reasons for that are probably pretty obvious to most people. Like, interest rates are very high, cost of materials is high, cost of land is high, and it just takes a lot to build new housing, and that's even market rate when you're expecting to charge a lot for rents that will come in and pay for the project. So imagine then that you do not have those market rents to rely on for an affordable housing project, just how difficult it is to put together a capital stack. And then you add on top of that there's a lot of very well-meaning regulations that apply when public dollars go into a project. So we want to make sure that people are paid fair wages, and we have environmental considerations, and we want to source all of our materials domestically from the United States. And all of that is coming from a really good policy position, but also increases costs on those projects by like 30 to 40%. So it's just one of the reasons projects that are like Gateway, funded by a lot of public dollars and low-income housing tax credits, are just pretty expensive and complicated to put together. It is not a system that we love, but it is the one that we are working within. And so, when people say, I can't believe we're spending any money on this, it's just so expensive, it's a terrible project. It truly is just the way that this system is functioning right now. And, we're getting new units out of it, and that's the best we can do with this system right now. So for everybody's benefit, this is a little backward looking on the timeline. We selected the developer back in early 2024, community meetings, applied for grants. We went and got some zoning hearing board approval for a few variances. We brought in the health partner earlier in 2025, submitted the LIHTC award application, applied for some more grants, and we were awarded the LIHTC in October of last year. And we are this year working on final design permits and construction. And where we are right now, essentially, I believe that the bids are out on the project, and working through some final financing, but again, hoping to have a shovel in the ground by the end of this year or early next year. That's it, on the game.
So, sorry about our technical difficulties here a little bit. The clicker's not working. So one of the kind of biggest partnerships that came out of the opening doors process, and that we saw as such an opportunity that before we had even fully completed the planning, we applied for a choice neighborhood planning grant. It's a federal grant for what is identified as distressed public housing, and Pembroke, the Pembroke Village housing development, because of its age, it is some of the oldest public housing in America. It qualified for distress, even though I would like to say the Bethlehem Housing Authority does do a great job kind of upkeeping that property. So in partnership with the BHA, the City of Bethlehem applied and then was awarded a $500,000 choice neighborhood planning grant. And it's really about a total neighborhood transformation focused on three things: people, housing, and neighborhoods. And it's kind of rooted in the idea that it's not enough to just come into a community, tear down public housing and rebuild it and leave. We've kind of done that, it didn't work. It requires also for a one-for-one replacement. It comes after the Hope 6 program, which we did see a lot of success nationwide. Allentown had a Hope 6 project, as did Easton, Neston Heights. If some of you may have been there, it's a really beautiful project. But they lost a lot of public housing because it did not require one-for-one replacement of units. So choice requires one-for-one replacement. And it also requires you to develop a plan in concert with your residents and the community to improve the neighborhood and the opportunities for the residents that live in the development. We're very lucky as a choice neighborhood. Many don't have drugstores or grocery stores or a lot of the infrastructure. We were starting from a place of real strength with strong schools who are working in partnership with us, with United Way of Greater Lehigh Valley, who is now our people lead in this process. And we had a great steering committee that guided us through the 2-year planning process. We submitted that plan to HUD in September, and late in the fall, it was accepted and approved. So we are kind of transitioning now out of the planning and implementation. So as we're going now into this implementation round, we hope to be able to apply for what is known as an implementation grant. Historically had been $30 to $50 million until the last round, which was much smaller with a lot more restrictions. And that actually kind of came out before our plan had been accepted by HUD, and we were unable to apply due to some issues with leadership changes at our developer. So we're kind of eagerly awaiting to see what happens to the choice program in the future, hoping that it gets back up to that robust funding to kind of kickstart the project. But in the interim, we're not waiting. So there is a great state tax credit program that has done amazing work in South Bethlehem. It's kind of funds Southside Tomorrow and community actions work. And so in partnership with the United Way, we have created what we're calling the Pembroke Workforce and Stability Initiative. And we just submitted the application at the end of May, so we're hoping it will be approved, but it's $900,000 over 6 years, a commitment that we got from corporate donations. They will receive a 95% tax credit on that donation, and that money is then able to be invested in the neighborhood. So we're very excited and hoping that that is approved. So some of the things that, yes, and very grateful to Just Born, who was a very large contributor to that. As part of the planning process, one thing that kept becoming clear, and you'll kind of hear this theme tonight, Bethlehem and Lehigh Valley has an amazing level of resources available, but often the problem is connecting residents with those resources. It is a lot of work to qualify for a lot of public benefits, and it can take a lot of time, and it's a very challenging process. So what became clear is for kind of the central part of the redesigned Pembroke Village, which is about 456 mixed income units across this site, and a secondary like phase 0 site that we've been talking about, would be a community center or resource center staffed, hopefully, if the MPP is approved by the Workforce Development and Economic Mobility Coordinator. I haven't gotten that one down yet. And that person would be doing that resource connection, working with the BHA Family Self-Sufficiency staff, and really following families from the birth of a child into adulthood and helping parents connect to whatever sort of resources they need or seniors. We're really kind of taking the community schools model that United Way has pioneered in schools around Lehigh Valley and bringing it into the community. And because they had such success with that model, they were really kind of a natural partner to continue that work, and we're very grateful that they were willing to take on the challenge. So within that and through programming that the United Way already does, we will also have access to childcare scholarships for parents, for pre-K, for daycare, kind of offer them flexibility. And the coordinator will be working with, we have commitments from St. Luke's and LBHN and the VOTAC about wanting to set up job training and placement programs. So that person will really be building out what those things can look like for residents and for children living in Pembroke. And we also had a really successful community ambassador program. This is actually something that HUD requires so that you're centering the residents of your community in this planning process. And so we've had 4 ambassadors throughout, and Community Action Development Bethlehem provided training and then mentorship and support. So this would allow to continue to give them stipends and to train more ambassadors to kind of keep trying to build up the civic muscle of kind of the residents in that neighborhood. So they have a a seat at the table as their neighborhood's changing. Another kind of the last part of our planning grant that we are wrapping up right now is our early action project. And some of you may have seen it if you drive on Pembroke or Staffco. There is a kind of odd little park on a triangle there that we discovered was known as Duckville Park. And it was Mr. Bloodbank of the Lehigh Valley. We learned he was one of the pioneers that led to Miller Keystone Blood Bank. Just a little known fact. And but we heard again and again from our first community meeting about how dangerous Staffco and Pembroke are. And there are hundreds of kids every day crossing that road to go to Northeast and to go to Liberty. It's along Atlanta's rapid EBS bus route, so there are a lot of people, crossing the street to get to the bus, walking from PHA properties. And so we really landed on what can we do to improve pedestrian safety. The planning grant had $150,000 for the early action project. And then City Council added another about $111,000 of city recreation funds. And we were able to upgrade the traffic crossing signals, so they have like a hand countdown, so you know how long you have to get across the road, and you're not playing Frogger as much. Repainting crosswalks in the area. In partnership with Lana, we are upgrading the bus. Shelters are not installed yet, but they will be installed by early August. So there will be upgraded shelters, and especially on the one side of Staffco where it was really on this very narrow little island that's kind of scary to stand on if you've ever stood out there. It's made the bus shelter much more kind of protected. And we have added in benches, some like domino and like chess tables. I saw my first person sitting at them today when I drove by. It was very exciting. And there's some kind of climbing play equipment that's geared for like the older kids that will be coming through the park. And if you could, sorry, it's okay. Sorry. And we will be celebrating all of these. All of the work should be complete with the bus shelters in on August 19th at a party in the park from 4 to 6. So everyone is invited to join us. And so that will kind of wrap up the planning grant phase. That will allow us to close it out. But the work is still continuing. Our community ambassadors, it's been so neat to see them go from nervous to kind of stand up to introduce themselves in a meeting to organizing community meetings. And out of that community meeting, they were kind of furthering their neighbors' concerns about people speeding along Marvine Street, Fritz Drive, Pembroke, and Garfield. If you've ever been back there, people use them as cut-throughs from Pembroke to Staffco, and they go very, very fast. So they organized just recently a Saturday meeting. We had staff that came from traffic and public works and engineering, and they took walks around the neighborhood and identified, and we've already got the new crosswalks installed at the places that they identified as, dangerous zones. And obviously there was traffic data to back that up. But so they are continuing to advocate for their community in really exciting ways. And just as kind of a reminder, this is where the housing plan kind of landed in concept. We had selected a company called Warman and Associates. That is the existing Pembroke site. Right now, it's very kind of car heavy, but also built for an era where households only had one car. So we tried to create more walkable communities with like central gathering spaces. With plazas and a community center and parks. And the plan kind of calls for a multi-phase approach where we would be building on open land first and then relocating residents so they would only have to move once. That would be the goal. So we, as I said, Gorman, like kind of leadership team we had initially been working with, they kind of departed in December and January. But in May, the president and the new kind of developer who will be working on the project came out to visit the site. And they keep going. This is just kind of some of the renderings. So they kind of came out, expressed their commitment to the project again, and we have started going through, talking through what the first phase could look like without a choice neighborhood grant to start getting those first houses under development. And so the kind of next like short update we have, very, very short, is just on our Alley House pilot program. This is a partnership with the Small Cities Lab at Lehigh University, Community Action Development Bethlehem, New Bethany, Community Action Lehigh Valley, and obviously the city. And when I kind of talked about the idea of leveraging what everyone was kind of good at, this was one of our first sort of innovative partnerships. And it resulted in us coming up with a model that we've now started applying to other affordable housing projects. The city here is kind of bringing the grant expertise of going after public funding. Community Action Development Bethlehem is helping with a lot of us that neighborhood-based community development engagement and construction along with CALV. And Small Cities Lab is doing a lot of design and research for us. And all of this has led to both the city's ADU zoning update work, which is underway, and to this first pilot alley house that is going to be built in West Bethlehem. We started the demolition last month, and we just closed the bids last week. So the property owners, they live on West Broad Street. The garage to the back of their house has been torn down now, and then a affordable accessory dwelling unit is going to be built. They have agreed to rent the property at affordable rents for 20 years, and New Bethany will then manage the property and like help with the placement of tenants who will be successful in the units. Come up here. Should I stand? Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Smith. I'm the Director of Community Action Development Bethlehem. We've partnered with the city on a number of the projects that you've heard about tonight. One that we're very excited about, and we're excited to announce some progress on this evening, is our Western Gateway Revitalization Project. So you can see the picture in the background, this sort of iconic row of historic houses here on the south side. Does anyone know where it is? Yeah, everybody's like nodding their heads. Yeah, like across from the Perkins, right? Coming across the Hill to Hill Bridge. So these two houses at the very end of the row have been vacant for over 15 years. In 2024, Cathedral Church of the Nativity, which is located right on the other side of these houses, reached out to us because they had purchased these houses with a goal of potentially demolishing them to put in a parking lot, and they were kind of revisiting their plans and said, we heard there's a housing crisis in Bethlehem. Is there any way that we could use these houses to do something about it? And they said, we got estimates for rehabbing these properties. It's way beyond anything that our church has the capacity to pay for and manage. So Community Action, we heard that you do construction projects. They toured one of our houses and saw what we'd done and, wondered if we'd be able to provide support. And so we started talking with our partners who we had been working with on the Alley House project, and we brought together New Bethany, of course, our wonderful partners who are actually right around the corner from these properties because they are experts at managing affordable units. They have over 50 units throughout the Lehigh Valley. They place tenants in them. They keep them up. They know how to do that work well. We don't do that at Community Action. We're pretty good at doing construction projects. We've done that for a long time. So we jumped in through both Community Action Development Bethlehem and our main Community Action Lehigh Valley to offer up our construction expertise. The Nativity Cathedral said, we want to keep the properties long term. We have a real interest in being a part of this project. And so they said, we're going to retain ownership of them, but we're going to agree to keep them affordable for an extended period of time. They're agreeing to 15 years at first, but we said if you're open to re-upping it, if it goes well, this could be a long-term commitment. And then finally, the city through the opening doors process helped to bring us together, helped to secure a number of different funding support sources, and supported our work with some of our local banking partners and state legislators to bring additional funds to the project. So we first started talking in 2024. It's now 2026, and we have $770,000 raised for this project. Work has been underway for the past few months on the exterior. If you want to click to the next one, this is what it looked like before, right as we were starting, and you can click to the next one. You can see this has been over the last 2 months. This is what it looked like, as pretty much everything in the front kind of got torn apart, we took down the columns in the front and had to redo the roofs, put new roofs up on the top. Of course, plenty of painting. As of today, this is what the two properties look like. Pretty exciting. And I want to give a huge shout out to a few people, Small Cities Lab at Lehigh University, Wes Hyatt there, and Chris Usler, through a partnership with one of their architecture classes, really got this work underway on this project and helped us imagine what could be possible. And then our project manager, Peter Lunis, who's done over 500 facades throughout the Lehigh Valley, was the one who came up with the whole design and said, let's restore those historic columns that used to be on this property long ago. Let's think of how we can restore these to their former glory and look at what they had looked like when they were first built over 100 years ago. And so we're centering historic preservation here because this is such a key gateway area to the south side. The outside looks nice, the inside not so much, but while we were doing the outside work, we've been working with our architect to finalize the interior layouts, and we just have finally figured out exactly what the interiors are going to look like. If you want to go to the next slide, we are able to fit 6 units in them, 3 in each, and these are nice size units. We're going to have 2 one-bedroom units and 4 two-bedroom units. They all have a washer and dryer and a dishwasher. We said these are affordable units. We want them to be places where folks live with dignity and in, comfortable, nice environment. And so we really, prioritize making them a nice size and having all the amenities that you would find in a market rate apartment. So these will be all rented affordably, as I mentioned, for 15 years. And we are hoping that they will be finished by late spring, early summer of next year. And so if all goes well, and no surprises, but we're very excited about this partnership. I think one of the biggest lessons that we've learned throughout it is how much you can get done when you work with other folks who have different areas of expertise, and thinking creatively about how to create affordable housing. The church owns this property. They will continue to own this property. We didn't have to buy land. We didn't have to buy a property to make it happen. That lowers our cost substantially. Just like Laura was sharing about the Eastern Gateway, the other end of the south side, when you don't have to buy the land, it makes it a lot more feasible to take on one of these projects. And so something to think about if you know anyone out there in the City of Bethlehem when this project's done who has a creative idea and has some space to offer for affordable housing. I think that's a really a successful model that we've been employing through the Alley House, through this project, through land donations. And so an exciting one that we'll hope to scale up in the future. So I will turn this back over.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
And So the second strategy we'll talk about tonight is protecting tenants at risk of displacement. So this is a different sort of strategy altogether. We were just talking about building and creating new units where they don't currently exist. But as Sarah mentioned, there are plenty of places throughout Bethlehem and the Lehigh Valley where people currently live and they are paying affordable rents, but there are various factors that could contribute to them no longer being able to afford to stay in the house, or their home is not safe, or for whatever reason, they may eventually be priced out. And there are some things that we have in our toolbox to assist in those situations, and there are other things that we can't control. When we talk about this, we try to talk about this at all of our meetings just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Do we wish that we could prevent private landlords from raising rents? Yes. Can we in the state of Pennsylvania? No, unfortunately we cannot. But what we can do is target properties where there are already restrictions in place on what rents are charged. So we talk about low-income housing tax credit projects or other publicly funded projects. Historically, we haven't had a new project since 2013, but before 2013, there were projects that came online through the LIHTC program. There's a defined period of affordability where the properties must be rented at affordable rates to qualified tenants, but that period of affordability expires. And so one of the things that we are thinking about and working on currently, we have Emily Valenta here, who's one of our housing policy lead, also doing a lot of work in this space, is how do we preserve affordability in properties like that are currently deed restricted or otherwise preserved to be affordable but are at risk of kind of running out their term. How are we able to keep those properties affordable? And then the other category is just naturally occurring affordable housing, of which we used to have a lot in the city of Bethlehem, particularly on the south side when Bethlehem Steel existed, and for various reasons, including like the rampant pollution that was coming off of the steel factory. But the housing was just a little bit less expensive, and so there are those naturally occurring affordable places for that people own or where they rent. But sometimes those are not as healthy or as safe as we would want to see, and that matters. But also there could be challenges that any homeowner, for example, faces, an emergency repair or long-term maintenance, and those kinds of costs could be totally detrimental for somebody who's living in an affordable space, but maybe can't afford to make those repairs, and all of a sudden their situation entirely changes. So we're going to hear a little bit tonight from our amazing folks who do our housing rehab program and have done housing rehab program for a long time, and also through our Health Through the Lens program. So before we look at those, I will just say back on that first topic of the expiring affordable units. We are bringing on a current graduate student from Harvard University through the Bloomberg Center for Cities to work on this particular topic with us. Mayor Reynolds was one of the few dozen leaders in 2023, 2024 who was accepted as part of the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. And one of the benefits that comes out of being a part of that program is we have access to resources like these Harvard graduate fellows. And this fellow will be with us for 2 years at no cost to the city. We're only one of 20 cities across the country that are going to have one of these Harvard placements. And what we do is we define a challenge that this particular student would be able to take on based on their experience. Jason, for example, was working with the Cambridge Housing Authority on their affordable housing portfolio most recently. And we define a challenge and really set out to work together to come up with a actionable solution over the term of the fellowship. So we're really excited about that and how that's all going to help us preserve some of these expiring affordable units. So then on the next, we'll just. That was the fair one? Oh. I don't have that on my slide deck.
So one thing that we were very excited about that just happened, the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, they distribute what's known as the FAIR funding for Pennsylvania. And that is some of the most flexible, affordable housing funding in the state. And this year it had a record number of applicants. And so we did see the awards were a little bit lower. We had applied for a rental rehabilitation program that Emily kind of developed with a little bit of assist from a summer Harvard Bloomberg fellow that we had. And we applied in November of 2025 and then found out June 11th that we've been awarded $250,000. So this will allow us to take all of the data we have from our housing and code inspection program And when Laura kind of talked about, we do not have the ability to limit the rents that a landlord can charge, but we can offer incentives. And if our housing inspectors identify a lot of code violations in your property, and you are willing to limit the increase and charge affordable rents, the City of Bethlehem would be willing to invest in your property. If you sign a contract and, do all the sort of compliance that we would like to see for that. So we were very excited to find out that we had been awarded $250,000 to get that program off the ground. And so this is something that Emily's been working on for almost 2 years now, so we are excited to see that. And this also just, there's a lot of other money that came in for our partners doing important housing work in the Valley. So we were very excited to see that as well. Habitat for Humanity has a great housing home repair program, so this kind of extends that work. Community Action has a great housing counseling program. We partnered with New Bethany. This is another kind of opening doors program. That $75,000 for the Housing Stability Collaborative will help provide rental assistance that Duvan Kano, our amazing tenant advocate at Community Action, could tap into. Housing navigators at New Bethany and at Northampton, we are negotiating pay-to-stays for tenants facing eviction. So this is very flexible money again. We provided seed funding for New Bethany of rental assistance of $190,000, and we went through that in about a year. That's how great the need was. And they have other funding sources, but a lot of them are more restrictive. So this was a kind of a big win for all of us.
So moving on to our housing rehab program, we've talked a lot about rental units, but we have this really amazing program in the city for folks who own their homes. They are income qualified, and as I was describing, they're people who probably live in what we would consider naturally occurring affordable units, right? I mean, but they may have challenges with code or other emergency or long-term maintenance challenges that present real difficulties for people. And we have, through our community development Bureau, with the support of CDBG and Home Dollars from HUD, been running an amazing housing rehab program for many years. And just would want to say, Perry and Sheila, if you don't mind raising your hands and just at least make yourself have been running this program and making real impact on a lot of people's lives every single year. They do about 40 units every year, 35 emergency repairs, 4 that are full rehabs. We spend about $353,000 on average. And we have a couple examples of some housing rehab projects. Slide. So you can see on the left, again, before, after work that improves facades, certainly, but also makes those real quality of life interior improvements that really improve people's lives. We also have, through the Health Bureau, our Lead and Healthy Homes program, and I think Beth was going to talk a little bit about that program as well.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As Laura said, I'm Beth from Bethlehem, so you'll always remember my name. So I work with the Health Bureau with Kristen, and we are very proud of our Lead and Healthy Homes program in our Environmental Health Division. As it says up here, not only do we help folks in the City of Bethlehem, we actually have approval from HUD to help the entire school district, which is very exciting, especially for those folks in Fountain Hill, Freemansburg, Hanover, and Bethlehem Township that can qualify for this program. You do have to income qualify for the program. We can help folks who are at 80% or lower AMI, which is a lot of people. You also have to have a qualifying occupant. So for our lead program, that is notably a child who is under 6. If it's a rental, we can help both owner-occupied and renters. In rental units, there doesn't necessarily need to be a child under 6 living there at this time. but the landlord must agree to give preference to families that have children under 6 for 3 years after we do the work. For our Healthy Homes program, you have to have a child who is under 18, an adult who is 62 or older, or any person of any age living with a disability. So we can help a lot of folks with our Healthy Homes. And as it says here, we do have a lot of Healthy Homes cases on average every year, and about 9 lead cases every year, but those numbers are going up. Very, very excited. We actually just stepped into our new lead hazard control grant that we were awarded from HUD's Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes. So we have another $2.4 million for the next 4 years through March of 2030. Super excited about that. We're rocking and rolling already. Jumping in with 2 feet first with that grant. And in the spirit of partnership, we just had a partnership last week with City of Allentown. Also has the same funding. And one thing we can do with this funding is actually provide free training to our contractors. It is a very intense certification to be a lead certified contractor. It's very intimidating. But we are able to put on those classes for both the contractors and their workers. And with CACLV, we partnered and held the class just last week. And we're looking to host another one for workers in the near future. So that is a very exciting aspect of Lead and Healthy Homes, that we're building our local contractor capacity. So when we do our Healthy Home assessments, we base our assessments on the 8 principles of Healthy Homes, which is keep it safe, keep it clean, keep it maintained, keep it dry, well ventilated, I'm not looking at my notes, maintained, thermally controlled, pest-free, and of course, contaminant-free, which is the big one. But under all those Healthy Home principles, that includes, of course, remediating lead-based paint and also lead-contaminated soil in play areas, which is very exciting. We get to fix some play areas, get some new nice playground mulch in there for the kiddos. We see a lot of trip and fall hazards, including concrete. If there's concrete that can cause trips, we have a great contractor that we work with who does a beautiful job with concrete, as Perry knows. A lot of railings, electrical hazards, plumbing concerns, you name it, ventilation, moisture issues, which is one of the big concerns, pest-free, heating, which is fantastic. Don't have to worry about that these days, but we do like doing them this time of year to get them ready for winter. And one of the biggest, most exciting to me, I get excited about radon. I love it when we find radon. This deadly radon gas. I wish we found it in every home so we can get every home a radon mitigation system. Every case gets a radon test, and if it's at the EPA's action level, they get a mitigation system. That's why I want to find it everywhere. Let's get radon mitigation across the city. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer behind smoking, number 1 cause for non-smokers. And then if you're a smoker and you live with radon, that's extra dangerous. You want to go to the next slide? Yeah. So before we get into our commercial break, I just wanted to point out that last year we did 10 lead hazard control projects, which was awesome. This year we're already at 12. Our trajectory is awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. There's a couple of reasons for that. Our outreach is really snowballing. Word of mouth is snowballing. We have a very dynamic partnership, again, spirit of partnership, with our fabulous Perry and Sheila of Housing Rehab, who kicks us, cases, and we work with them jointly. Our contractor capacity, again, we just onboarded 2 new lead contractors who are doing awesome work for us. So just to get extra contractors out there is really helpful. But undoubtedly, the reason is our staff. Not only Perry and Sheila in Housing Rehab, but the staff in Lead and Healthy Homes. It's a staff of 2, Nick and Taylor. They are just rocking and rolling. I don't know what I would do without them. As these guys know, our staff is just amazing. And, I wish they were here tonight, but it's because of them we're going to easily double our cases this year. But now you can enjoy our little promotional video, this commercial break.
If anything is wrong with your child, but actually needs to that poison. I just reached out by the health service. I decided to meet with them, and if it's going to be for the better for my child, let's do it. They actually replaced windows, and they painted, repainted the ceilings and stuff in my living room. They did the porch on back. There was really no catch. It was basically the government actually looking out for their kids and their safety and their health.
So here's one of our Healthy Homes cases. Speaks for itself. Yeah, this contractor was amazing. Female contractor too. So here's a lead case. This was all lead. Got them new floorboards for their porch. And that was a house with a sick child, with a child that had an elevated blood level. At the health department, we receive all reports of children that have elevated blood levels. They go right to the top. They get their house done ASAP. So some typical lead work, just some run-of-the-mill. This door was completely lead, obviously a child's room. Got them a brand new door, freshly encapsulated baseboard, and obviously a brand new window, which also helps with weatherization, having brand new windows. So some typical work. And if you want more information, Healthy Homes at Bethlehem-PA. Got you.
Leaving up partnerships on our IT systems here. Sorry for the hiccups tonight. The clicker was working before we got started, and I don't know what happened. One of the kind of centering things when we started opening doors, the city was doing an affordable housing study and also a strategic plan to address homelessness. And they were separate plans, but the deeper we got into each door, we realized how intersectional they were. And this was actually kind of a graphic that we came up with through the process of the housing continuum. All of the different types of housing out there. So you see anything from our unsheltered neighbors to your standard market rate, market rental, and home ownership. And we kind of decided and discerned through this process the two roles that the city of Bethlehem could play would be like bookending this continuum. Supporting our unsheltered neighbors and providing our technical assistance, our government capital to help create permanent emergency sheltering in the Lehigh Valley. And then to do everything that we could to boost the supply of affordable housing because the market was not going to take care of it on its own. And we're certainly doing a lot of work kind of supporting our partners in that central part of the continuum, but there are a lot of people doing a lot of important work there already. And these were kind of two areas we found that with the power provided to us as a local government and the funding that we have available that we can make the most impact. And so as part of that strategic plan to address homelessness, it identified an acute need across the Lehigh Valley, not just in Bethlehem, for emergency shelter, and both for families and for individuals. And we at first, I think, started thinking about that through a one-site solution, but as our one site for the individual sheltering kind of became clear, it was evident that that site would not be able to support the family sheltering. And as you never kind of know where opportunities will pop up, but it's always important to keep talking to your partners and letting them know what you're working on. The Lehigh Conference of Churches owned this building at 232-234 West Packer Avenue. And it went through a city code inspection, and it needed about $400,000 worth of repairs, which the conference could not afford to make to the property. And they knew that we were looking for a sheltering site and approached the city and offered up the property. The city had received from HUD, from the federal government, $1.4 million that we had already said that we were going to use for non-congregate sheltering, which means that each person would have to have a private room and full private bathroom. And we felt that this site, because it had been at the time being previously rental as affordable rental units, they're already kind of sectioned off into private apartments, it would really lend itself well for that. So we went through a preliminary design and engineering to come up with cost estimates, and we found out that we needed twice as much money as we had. So then we realized that we had to apply for some more grants. And so we applied for the same kind of federal fund state Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development was distributing across the state. And we were thrilled to find out, when was it? June of 2025, that the project was fully funded and selected by the state. So that allowed us to then start moving forward with the environmental review that was required and then get under contract with the state. So that happened at the end of 2025, that we were fully contracted with the state. And so we've begun the process of selecting an architect for the final design and engineering, and City Council will be voting on that next week. So that project will be moving ahead, and we are very excited. It will provide 11 family sheltering units there. And this is kind of another sort of interesting partnership, and that the conference will be selling the building to the city, but then they will be the operator of the facility. So it's a little bit of a new role for the city in doing this, and we've been very grateful for our friends in Public Works and Engineering who are working through this process with us. And then on our individual sheltering, we have our great partner, Bethlehem Emergency Sheltering. You're going to hear from their operations manager shortly, but we have been working with them for several years now, and partnering with Christchurch UCC owns the church and the facility where currently Bethlehem Emergency Sheltering is operating a cold weather 70-bed shelter. It is a volunteer effort except for the 2 staff. It is a Herculean task to shelter and feed all of these people every night with volunteers, and they also have some part-time security staff as well. But if you haven't ever volunteered there before, I really suggest you do. It's a really wonderful experience, and you get to see the passion and the heart that everyone puts into that work there. So as we've been kind of working through various iterations of staff, leadership changes, and kind of figuring out what could be the home for BES, Christchurch has expressed a desire for this to be the long-term home for BES. They have been going through a leadership transition when their longtime executive director, Bob Rapp, retired in December to become the full-time pastor at Christchurch UCC, so he did not go too far. So he's still doing his work, and then Brian has stepped in and did a wonderful job in his first shelter season. He's going to tell you about that soon this evening. But we did a similar preliminary design and engineering process. The project's estimated at around $6 million. The city has committed $2 million to the project already. And we have submitted any grant application, and we just had our first successful award, $330,000 in county local share account. That's the money that comes back into the community from the gaming revenue from the casinos. We're very grateful to State Rep Steve Samuelson for pushing that forward for us, and he also brought home some money for New Bethany's shelter renovations that they're doing as well. So all of that money is going to be going to support our sheltering operations of our unsheltered neighbors. And just before I turn it over to Brian, I would say, we have been all working together very well. There have been just some changes, and right now we have a new president at BES on the board, and we have Mike Wong, the treasurer, here tonight, who's been seeing us through various iterations of this process, and they really kind of hit the ground running. Brian is working on an operations plan, like what will it take to become a year-round shelter? What will that look like? What will it cost? What services will we offer? They're all kind of very important questions we need to answer as we're trying to kind of raise that money. But I'm going to hand it over to Brian so he can tell you a little bit about who the shelter served this year, where they were coming from. I think the data is very illuminating.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Sweeney. I'm the Director of Operations over at Bethel Emergency Shelter. Currently, we are operating from November 1st through April 30th during the cold months. Currently a 70-bed facility. This past season, we served 223 unique individuals for 11,671 bed nights and served 9,656 hot meals. Most of that's done through volunteer work. All the meals are 100% volunteer based. They come in, they purchase the food, they cook the food, they serve the food, clean up. We have myself, another director, who are paid staff, and we have some support staff through our shelter season. I want to speak a little bit as to who our individuals were. 14% of our individuals found housing or transitional housing, which is awesome. 21% of our individuals were employed. 15 of our individuals were veterans. 28% of our individuals were fleeing domestic violence, which is sad. 46.6% of our folks had a mental health diagnosis. 34% of our folks had a disability. So a lot of these people have a lot of challenges, need some help for sure. But where are these folks coming from? 177 of the 223 unique individuals, or 79.4%, came from Lehigh or Northampton County. Like, these are our neighbors. They're not from far away. They're not coming here because there's a shelter here. In fact, 215 of our folks, or 96.4%, are from the state of Pennsylvania. We only had 8 individuals from out of state. Those were 2 from Virginia, 1 from New York, 2 from New Jersey, 1 from California, 1 from Arizona, and 1 from Nevada. These are our neighbors, and they need some help. I want to speak a little bit about some of the age groups. So 48 of our unique individuals, or 21.5%, were 60 or older. When you're 60 or older and staying in an emergency shelter, the cards are stacked against you. You're going to need a lot of help. You're going to need a lot of support. It's going to take a big effort from a lot of community partners. If we stretch that back another 10 years to 50 or older, we're talking about 91% of our folks, or 40% of our folks, for 6,087 bed nights, which turned out to be 52% of our bed nights were folks that were 50 and older. The cards are stacked against them also. If we want to take a quick peek at the income range that our folks were making, 59%, or closer to really 60%, 59.64% of our folks were making between $0 and $500 a month. Even if they're making $500 a month, I can't even eat off that, So, and really only, let's see here, 5, 6, 7, 8, only 8 of our folks total all year made between $2,000 and up. Those were typically the situationally homeless, people that had some kind of tragedy in life, lost where they were living, needed a little bit of help for a little bit, and for the most part, those individuals were able to take our help, dust themselves off, and find a spot to go pretty quickly. I just want to speak a little bit about who it is that we are serving, how they are our neighbors, how they're not coming from far away, and how much help these folks really need. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And next, we're going to turn it over to Vinay Berger, who runs the city's Community Connections program. So she's going to tell you about all the really, really important work that they're doing.
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name is Vinay Berger, and I am the Director of Nursing and Community Connections at the Bethlehem Health Bureau, and we are doing a lot of really important work, but we do it with our really important partners. Many of you are here today, so we couldn't do this at all, any of this, without you. We have here Kristen Wenrick, who is our quiet but mighty leader, and of course our other health Bureau and city partners. We also have Carissa Samante Camp. She is with the Community Connections program, and she is the architect of a lot of the programs that I'm going to go over tonight, and she does a lot of the boots on the ground work too. So So Community Connections, I think you guys know by now, because I know most of you, but we are a Bethlehem Health Bureau, Bethlehem Police collaboration. We have community social workers and mental health specialists in the Bethlehem Health Bureau, and we work very closely with the Bethlehem Police when they go out into the field on a call where there's a mental health crisis or acute social need that any of our community members are experiencing, and we can assist them with connecting those people to services instead of turning it into a criminal event. We go out into the field and meet the folks where they are there. And of course, a lot of our work we've developed a lot of programs where we do a lot of outreach work with our unhoused. We have a bunch of unhoused people in Bethlehem, as we have all over the country, and it's a complicated and complex set of circumstances that these people deal with every day. And so we have a lot of intensive outreach that we do with the homeless community. So, this slide, I'm going to just touch briefly on each of the little topics here. So, our outreach and engagement. So, approximately 92 unique individuals engaged through our Community Connections outreach efforts, and about approximately 78 were connected to services and supports. We conducted consistent outreach at the encampments, and Carissa, we do a lot of work with the police, but also with Comfort of Churches in New Bethany, and we know where there are encampments and there are people who are sort of spread out over different parts of the city, and we find them and know where they are. And we just do constant outreach so that we can start to develop trust and develop those relationships. And it does take a lot of time, and there are a lot of circumstances that these people are dealing with on a regular basis. Trust is not always there. So we try to show up continually to build those relationships and that trust. So that's the main part of that structured outreach. Meaningful engagement requires a lot of repeat engagement. Our outcomes, this is really significant for us. We have 6 highly vulnerable older adults who with our community partners, were successfully housed. We assisted with our community partners to help them with their housing applications, identification replacement, benefits enrollments, transportation, service navigation, and then we continue working with them once they're placed in housing to make sure they're feeling comfortable, getting what they need and doing what they need to stay housed. And it's just really very exciting for us when we get people with whom we've been working with a long time who have been on and off about wanting to get into housing and finally getting into a safer, warmer, drier, cooler housing spot. So we're very excited about that. And again, a lot of it is because of this continued outreach that we do, and it takes a long time to get people to that place sometimes. So housing placement often requires addressing multiple barriers before placement becomes possible. Everything from, we said, the IDs to willingness to go to, mental health diagnoses. There are a lot of complex problems that can hold up that process. But we work, again, so closely with Conference of Churches, reliable partners, street outreach, street meds, Bethlehem Area Shelter, our regular partner, New Bethany, regular partners. It's become quite a deep collaborative effort. Brian touched on this, and it is, I think, really important. The older folks who are unhoused, it is tough. If you're 60 plus and you're unhoused, it's really tough. The cards are stacked against you. 55 plus, 50 plus. If you're unhoused, the cards are stacked against you. But when you get older and you have additional complex, perhaps medical needs, mental health needs, it becomes really, really tough. So we and BES noticed, as our other community partners did, a significant increase in the older adult experiencing homelessness. And a lot of them have chronic health issues, mobility issues, they have income issues, sometimes fixed income, sometimes no incomes. They're not going to be able to go out and get a job. It's a really complex set of circumstances. So Carissa and Brian and Conference of Churches developed an outreach effort for adults 55 plus. They increased coordination with healthcare and housing providers and prioritized housing navigation for this highly vulnerable population. So they have a concerted effort when BES is open during the season, every Tuesday and Thursday, Carissa, Brian, Riley, Conference of Churches go and engage with the same folks who are staying at BES over and over again to try to get them where they need to be, to figure out what they need to get out of the shelter and into a temporary housing and then a more permanent housing situation. One of the things that we've noticed, and this is again across the nation, but we're not immune to it, is there's an increased reporting of scamming activity. And our older citizens are a prime target. It is one, can't think of too many things that make me angrier than when you take advantage of an older person who is already disadvantaged and on the line of an income to sustain themselves. So older adults are a vulnerable population and continue to be disproportionately affected by these and targeted by these scams. Financial exploitation can and does, we know this through experience, contribute to housing instability and becoming unhoused. I can think of at least one, maybe two, actually two, okay, five, see, she's gonna be, of our older clients who have become homeless because of these scams and continue, and it wasn't just the older, we have a couple of younger people too, they get caught in these ideas and they continue to give them money and it is an insidious practice. So Carissa did a bunch of research and came up with a program called Stop, Check, Protect. And we don't have an outline of it now, but it's a great idea to get community members involved in being the people who spread the message. And I was thinking about whoever was talking about our ambassadors. They would be a really great group of people to ask if they wanted to get involved with promoting this program and this message. It's just the idea being, you live in this community, we're neighbors, we're friends, and hey, you heard about the scamming? And especially anyone who's been scammed, the amount of shame that is around that having happened to you is huge. So if you can get maybe some people who've been a victim of that scam or have relatives or friends to communicate this and say, let's check each other. What have you been getting any strange messages? What does that look like? How do they sound? And we're trying to get not just the community involved, but banks, grocery stores, places that sell a lot of the gift cards. Gift cards are a big thing that people are asked to buy. So there's a whole plan for it, but we're really excited to come up with a plan to try to figure out, and there are a lot of programs in existence already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we want to implement something here because we're very aware of the power of this scamming and the effect it's had on our citizens. So prevention is the most effective intervention, and community members are the best people we think to get involved in this, to protect each other. So veterans, we also have a great number of veterans who are unhoused, a lot of complicated issues there too. We do a lot around that issue, and we work with a lot of community-based organizations from the VA to different offshoots of the VA to make sure our veterans get connected to the veteran services. Some are fully eligible and are not yet connected, and to make sure they can get as many of the benefits they can for having served our country. So we identify veterans through outreach, connect veterans to VA services, and coordinate with veteran-serving organizations. And we have a close relationship with a couple of first responding organizations. What?
Victory House.
Oh, the Victory House, right. So there is a program that Carissa and Victory House are working on together with veterans to get, you want to describe it really quickly, because you're going to be more articulate than I. Just first of all, I want you to meet Carissa because she does a lot of the work and she's a lot of the boots on the ground. So I think she deserves kind of a round of applause. But then I want to let her.
We're in the planning stages right now where we want to create a leadership committee within Victory House, picking about like 3 or 5 of a small group right now. It has to be odd because for voting reasons, but to help them create a different identity, where they're not just a unhoused addict in recovery. We want them to be leaders in their community to change other people's lives, right? So if you give them that new sense of self and purpose, it also helps reduce their relapse. So we want to try to create that within that space right now, and if it gets if it's successful, we can spread it through the other organizations, and hopefully we can incentivize it. I did hear from a community partner, I'm not going to name who it is yet, that they did have funds for incentives for those who will be participants in the leadership committee. So hopefully that'll be this fall. Yeah.
It goes along the same idea of empowering community members maybe who've been scammed to do the same thing. You know, to incentivize people to really share that experience and take yourselves out of the shame of things. We all make these kinds of mistakes. We all have, well, we're human and fallible. And if you have addiction and you're now in recovery, that's an amazing thing. So we need to empower you to share that with other people. So that is hopefully, these programs are ideas we've had, and they do take a long time to implement, but that's very good news about potential funding. So we also, I don't know if everyone here knows, but the Bethlehem Health Bureau has a mobile clinic. You may have seen it around. We were lucky enough to get that we've had it for about 2 years now? Yeah, 2 years now. And so we do as much outreach as we can with that mobile clinic. We, of course, have our family planning clinics, STD testing clinics, HIV testing clinics at the Bethlehem Health Bureau. Our Partners for a Healthy Baby. We do a lot of programs at the Bethlehem Health Bureau, and we try to take those out into the community. Not that the city, we're in City Hall, the second floor of the Health Bureau. We have a clinic there. But, it's nice to have a presence on the south side. We also we also have our programs going to BES when they're open for the year, and we go to New Bethany, and we have a lot of presence in the community. So one of the things that we do with our mobile clinic is a care event. So as far as the unhoused goes, we try to get all the community-based and county-based organizations together in one place. So if someone needs an ID, they can talk about that. If they need to be enrolled in Medicare or Medicaid, we can talk about that. So you don't have to send them from place to place to place. We bring all the services together. There's recovery center information, there's all of the community-based organizations, sheltering organizations. So we do that several times a year. Our next CARE event will be in September. It just reduces some of the barriers of having to go to different places to get your information and what you need. So we're learning a lot of things. So a lot of barriers that we all face as providers is lack of identification and lack of documentation for folks. We have to get them connected with that. Always transportation challenges. Transportation is a very big deal. We did just get a grant. We have actually 2 separate grants that we were so fortunate to get that we can do Uber Health. We have one for maternal child health for women with parents with children, and one for individuals. We can do some of that, but the dollars aren't a lot, and it goes quickly, and transportation is always a very big need. Healthcare access issues are common. Insurance enrollment, and that people are going to fall off the rolls, the Medicaid rolls, very quickly, very soon, even more than they are, and SNAP benefits as well. There are a lot of new requirements coming down, so we're gearing up to try to learn all those requirements and make sure we're available to re-enroll people, or make sure people know that they've even been disenrolled in Medicaid. So that is a big issue coming up for us and our community partners. There are a lot of complex application requirements. There's limited communication options for people who don't know they've fallen off the rolls. There's a ton of unmet mental health, behavioral health needs in the community. We just don't have enough resources, and the access and transportation are barriers. So we're identifying all these needs, and we have a lot of wonderful organizations and community partners, so we just are working very hard on getting communication and the flow that we can all know what is available for whom and when. It's not always a lack of resources. Sometimes it's a lack of knowing how to navigate all those resources. We also noticed in the development of this program that sometimes people need some help with the court system. If you get arrested and you get a charge, and then you're unhoused and you get that charge sent to your address that you don't have, and you don't get that, and then you miss it, and then you get a fine. There's a lot to the process. When we know we have clients because fortunately we work with the Bethlehem Police, we can find out if there are charges and when the court case is, and then we'll reach out to that person and try to help with transportation and make sure that they know the steps they have to go through to get that, to navigate that process successfully. So I'm going to wrap it up here because no one wants to speak all night. So we have so many things that we do. a lot of the need we see, especially with our unhoused, but with all of us really, but there is lack of trust. We deal with people who have been through this time and time again. A lot of people have gone up to them and said, oh, we really want to help you. And then it doesn't come through, something doesn't happen. It could be on the part of the provider, it could be on the part of the individual not doing what they need to do to continue those services, but there's a lack of trust. And sometimes we've learned that, like with the 211 system, if people are in that system and they don't have a phone and the provider has tried to call them and there's no answer because they don't have a phone and that number has changed, they fall off the rolls and they don't know they're off the rolls. And when we encounter them, we say, oh, wow, you're not in the 211 system, and they thought they'd been in there all along. So there's a lot of coordination and resourcing and organization that we're noticing could really help. One of the things that we're doing is every 3 years, the Bethlehem Health Bureau does a community health needs assessment. We are in the process of working through all of the needs that were established by the community and our community partners. And one of the things that mental health is doing is we are trying to coordinate, make a communication system. So hospitals, and if you've been inpatient in the hospital, or you've gone to the emergency department, or you've been inpatient in a recovery center or a mental health inpatient stay. If you are unhoused and you're being discharged, we want to come up with a plan. Because when you are discharged from the emergency department or inpatient, or you have dementia, or you're particularly vulnerable and you're discharged into being unhoused again, that is where that cycle continues. So we engage both hospital systems, a lot of providers in the area, and then a lot of community-based organizations like BES and all the other sheltering organizations, transportation organizations, anyone who helps this community. That what kind of communication system can we build? I don't know, but we have a lot of smart people that we work with. You guys out here, we can figure this out. There's a system we can build that when someone is leaving the hospital who is vulnerable and unhoused, they just don't go back out into being unhoused and start that cycle again. So there are a lot of the things that we're doing. Can I just ask, could anyone raise their, have you ever been to the Bethlehem Health Bureau? Will you raise your hand? Okay. 2 people. Okay. Does anyone even know where we're located?
Second floor.
Okay. Well, I think y'all should come by and have a tour. Because I don't think a lot of people know where we are. One of the things we're going to be doing with our mobile clinic as soon as we can get organized is get a lot more promotion about who we are, where we are, and the services that we offer. If you don't have money, you can come get these services for free. Men's exams, birth control, family planning, testing, treatment. We have a lot of services. So you guys get out there and tell your people about it, and we're going to get out there and help you tell your people about it. It was nice talking to you and seeing everybody.
The answer is the second floor of City Hall.
So we are coming to the close of the meeting tonight. I want to thank you all for your interest, your patience. Just kind of some of the strategies that we didn't talk about tonight that we'll be talking about at our third quarter meeting will be some of the work we've been doing around a revolving loan fund. We have been working with the Center for Public Enterprise for the last few months, exploring whether one of these mixed income housing production revolving loan funds can work in Bethlehem and what kind of incentives that could be paired with them to make one successful. And it is really getting at kind of what Laura was talking about earlier in the night, how long the low-income housing tax credit process can be, and trying to find ways to innovate and partner and bring housing units online faster. And the other kind of strategy we've been working on behind the scenes that we hope we'll be bringing to you at the next meeting as well is what we've been doing in updating our land use. And we have been working for over a year now on a zoning update to allow for accessory dwelling units. They are a type of housing that exists historically all around Bethlehem in various forms. You may see carriage houses in the historic district, West Valley houses in West Bethlehem, and on the south side, there are over 900 that actually currently exist. We know because a bunch of Lehigh students walked all of the alleys of Bethlehem on a 100-degree summer day for us to catalog all of them. So we've been partnering with the Small Cities Lab at Lehigh. They've done a lot of really neat research for us, and this is definitely our most data-driven and with a lot of community input zoning update that we're hoping to be bringing forward soon. And
Kathy's doing a great thing.
and our director of planning and zoning, Kathy Fletcher's back there. And I'm going to welcome Anna Smith up here. A neat thing that she put together, kind of building out of her work with the community ambassadors in the Pembroke neighborhood, was a community housing advocates class. Many people in Bethlehem City Hall were tapped into this. It's one of our nonprofit partners. And we have some of our graduates here of the program tonight.
So tonight's theme is partnerships, and by virtue of being here this evening, I think if you weren't already, you're now a partner in this work. There are so many ways to get involved in supporting housing justice in Bethlehem, and in our community housing advocacy class, we're talking about housing justice as the intersection of creating those housing units and creating new affordable housing, which you heard at the beginning, supporting our unhoused neighbors through services, and then supporting our renters and our tenants to ensure that they're able to remain stably housed. So our housing advocates in our program spent 7 weeks learning about all the details surrounding how you produce affordable housing, landlord-tenant law, how to support their neighbors, to be a referral source for anyone and get the word out about all these programs, how opportunities for volunteering and opportunities to get involved in advocating for policies that better serve all of the residents of our community to ensure housing stability. And so we have 4 of our graduates here tonight. Did want to bring them up to give them their certificates. We had a class of however many are on the screen that finished. I think it's 11 people finished. We had another 15 or so last fall, and we'll be running another program this upcoming fall. So if you know of anyone who's interested in getting more deeply involved in supporting housing justice in our community, look out for that. We'll start advertising that toward the end of August. So I'd just like to call up Alvin Johnson, Lee Sparrow, Mark Schoenfeld, and Tony Fernandez. Congratulations, thank you for your dedication, and shout out to Christy Curso, who attended the class in the fall and is also one of our guys. So thank you so much for all your work and for being back on Thank you. And that team is certificates. Yes. And that Let's see. And then I'll get Tony first. So congratulations. Thank you.